to another edition of Fandom News Now. I'm your host, Zach Arnold, and this is a Fandom Empire exclusive that I am very excited to host and bring to you. On this show, if you're new to it, we're going to have things like news, obviously, that name is in the title. We're also going to have things like casting announcements, reports, rumors, and so much more. We are going to have a Q&A segment towards the tail end of this evening, so be sure to send in your questions and super chats to us, and we will get to them towards the tail end of the program. On tap tonight, things like Disney, Nintendo, Netflix, and yes, everyone's favorite franchise, Halloween. Not going to be starting off quite as spooky as the Halloween franchise, although I will say this particular trailer did give me a couple of chills. We got our first look at 2021's Cruella not too long ago. The trailer released this week, showing us our first real look at Emma Stone playing a young Cruella. The previous live-action edition of Cruella de Vil that we got was played by Glenn Close in the 101 Dalmatians live-action movie back in 1996. So it's been about 25 years since we've seen anything from this franchise, not counting the 102 Dalmatians movie that soon followed. That one was not really even worth mentioning. I'm sorry I did that. But we're going to be seeing some really interesting aspects as far as looking at potentially Hell Hall, which we know from the original movie back in the 60s. We're going to be taking a look at how she came to be who she was, because obviously Emma Stone had a little bit of an evolutionary experience getting from looking more like Emma Stone to looking more like Cruella de Vil. And helping her along this journey is going to be a Baroness von Hellman, played by none other than Miss Emma Thompson. There's going to be several other recognizable names that are going to be a part of this project, but if you're interested in taking a look at this trailer for yourself, be sure to go find Disney Plus, Disney, and a couple of other pages like Discussing Film on Twitter. They have all shared it on their platforms. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Do you think that 25 years is a long enough wait to bring back this franchise? What did you think of the look that we got from Emma Stone's appearance in this film? Those are things that we're going to be touching on during the Q&A segment at the end of the program. One of the other big trailers that happened, and it happened earlier today, I'm so glad that it dropped before this program began, we got our first look at 2021's Mortal Kombat. Again, it's been several decades since we saw anything related to Mortal Kombat on the big screen. I believe the last one was in 1995. So we're finally getting a revamped, updated version. And to help me break it down is our good buddy Kieran, part of the Fandom Empire team here. I really don't have as much experience with the games or the franchise as a whole. And so, Kieran, thanks for joining us on this program, our first guest of Fandom News Now. And I am just beside myself looking at some of the visual components that we get from this trailer, in addition to all of the posters that we got. Where do you even begin to break all of this down?
I mean, I would think what they're trying to convey here is pretty much exactly what they've said all the way leading up to the movie, which is we want this movie to represent the games. And I have played all of the recent games. I love the stories. They're definitely a little odd with some of their choices when it comes to storytelling, but it looks just like the movies in a way that fatalities happen, crazy gore, that's kind of over the top and kind of animated. In the trailer, we see Sub-Zero freezing Jax's arms and just ripping them off. And obviously that seems like it would be kind of, like it's outside of what you can happen in the real world. But we also see specifically a spot where Sub-Zero stabs Scorpion, I think in the arm, and a bunch of blood spurts out. He changes that into an icicle and stabs Scorpion with it. That looks like it's ripped directly from the most recent games. So I think they've made a really smart play here, because they've taken something that anyone that has enjoyed the most recent games, which have gotten a lot of praise, they're going to get that audience into it. And old school Mortal Kombat fans like myself, we're going to go see it no matter what happened. I think they made a really smart move. And one of the things that I've heard a lot of problems with are that Johnny Cage is oddly absent from the trailer and probably the movie. But I think it was probably a good choice, being as that he's a comic relief character, and I don't think they wanted that sort of goofiness in this movie, which is, I mean, I'm a big Johnny Cage fan myself. I dressed up as him for Comic-Con like 2 years ago. But I think it looks fantastic, and I think they're really killing the vibe that they wanted to go for, which I think makes the movie look like it's going to be a success.
Well, and just about all of the people that got posters yesterday seemed to make an appearance in the trailer today, which I feel like was a really good 1-2 punch as far as teasing what you're going to be looking at and then giving you that revelation not too long after. It's definitely got social media abuzz. It's one of the primary things that's trending on Twitter right now. And it's making me want to go try out the games, honestly. I mean, I did a little bit of research beforehand and found out that this game, started about the same time I did, right, in the early 90s, and has been a part of people's gaming experiences for over 2.5 decades. And hopefully CGI has caught up well enough now that they can get the proper movie storytelling that they have been wanting probably since the first movie came out in 95. Not to knock on anything that Paul Anderson may or may not have done, but I mean, let's be honest, 25 years of separation, CGI and movie quality as a whole has just taken leaps and bounds in that time, and hopefully that shows on the big screen.
Awesome, yeah.
Oh,
yeah, I think it's definitely going to work out that way. I mean, it's probably a lot to do with, that the fact that they're kind of keeping in line what they can. I think they probably couldn't convey what they wanted to in the 90s movie, but as video game movies kind of went like this in the 90s, and they've been going up recently. Most recent Tomb Raider movie was good. They've been hitting a lot more of these out of the ballpark.
That is true. I think the Sonic the Hedgehog movie was another one that people were really fond of. I can't speak to Detective Pikachu. I feel like that one got some mixed results. But as a whole, video games being adapted into movies has been a popular trend, and this one seems to be no different. For people unfamiliar with the Mortal Kombat experience, it is a tournament of the best fighters imaginable, featuring 18 surviving realms, which is created by the elder gods of the storyline. So this is going to be a tournament-style adventure story from what we can see in the trailers. But, I mean, the fact that it was a red band trailer, I think, speaks for itself, that this is definitely going to be something that is intended for more discerning audiences. So probably not something you'd want to bring your kids to unless you want to give them nightmares. You could be that kind of parent, but I definitely wouldn't be.
Yeah, I've always been on that sort of side of things as well. I know, I speak to a lot of fans who let their kids watch Rick and Morty, and I love Rick and Morty, but I would never. I'm not letting my kids watch that. I don't know, but to each their own. I always say, when you're a parent, you get to make your own choices, and you don't have to really, unless you're hurting someone, you don't really have to speak to nobody. So I don't know. Should be a fun movie, though. I think it's going to be great. Even if it's just a popcorn flick, and the storyline is, as long as it is entertaining. I think they really just got to get the cool, gory type things that only Mortal Kombat brings you. If you're a Mortal Kombat fan, there's a very specific vibe to those games that they have to hit, and the trailer looked like it.
Well, that is exciting news. The movie debuts April 16th. So not too far away, day after tax day for those of us here in the States. So after a very taxing day like that, we'd probably want a little respite. And it's going to be available in theaters and on HBO Max, if I'm not mistaken. So, Kieran, Thanks so much for your time and for your input. And I like the little mention that you had of Rick and Morty. Good luck on the rest of your expeditions on the Rick and Morty show. Hopefully I can join you a little bit on that one as well. It's been a while since I've been in the Rick and Morty franchise, but it's always fun to talk about.
Yeah, that'd be great. We'll definitely have you on.
Right, that is Kieran from Fandom Empire talking with us about the experiences from Mortal Kombat. We got $5 in contribution from Matt Whitfield. Thank you so much for the super chat, Matt. He says, other than Rise of Skywalker and the Halloween movies, Mortal Kombat is one of my most anticipated movies. You know, it's interesting. Over at the Intergalactic Peace Coalition, we usually do a top 5 movies that we are most anticipating for the year. But we thought it would be redundant because so many movies got pushed back from 2020 into 2021. But after seeing that trailer, I might be inclined to agree with you, Matt. Switching over to the TV platforms for just a little bit here, Marvel has announced a new documentary series titled Assembled. It's going to be a behind-the-scenes documentary series about all of the upcoming Marvel film and TV shows, starting with a look at WandaVision coming on March 12th on Disney+. So as soon as WandaVision concludes, if you want to take a look at some of the behind-the-scenes, the making of, the production, some little behind-the-scenes interviews, talking with some of the cast and crew, seems like that's going to be made and going to be put out there on March the 12th. What's interesting to note, though, is that in addition to Assembled, there is some interesting tidbits about these final 2 episodes of WandaVision as a show. Paul Bettany was recently quoted saying that there is one character that has not been revealed, and it is very exciting. It's an actor I've longed to work with all of my life. So even though Evan Peters has made his appearance and he's making his presence felt on the show, there is still much more to experience before we take a look at that documentary series. But be on the lookout for Assembled, coming on March 12th on Disney+. Going from the Marvel universe to the Star Wars universe, Nintendo has announced that there is going to be a new game later in 2021 titled Star Wars Hunters. And coming in to help me talk about that is the creator and founder of the Fandom Empire and a good friend of mine who somehow roped me into this program in the first place, is my good buddy Sean. Dude, taking a look at that trailer and then taking a look at some of the gaming experiences that we've had from Star Wars in recent months and years, this one's shaping up to be pretty darn exciting.
We heard about this one a little while ago, and not too long ago. And first of all, thanks for having me. Thank you for opening your lovely golden doors to allow my Canadian voice to come in here. You're doing awesome, man. It's great shit. They came out a few weeks ago with a report that this game was coming. What we didn't know is it was coming for the Nintendo Switch. Most people just assumed it was for all major platforms. And maybe there's still a different game coming. Maybe it's not the game that was alluded to. But it kind of sounds like it is. And look, I've been really critical over what EA has done with the Star Wars license. I think most Star Wars fans have. Battlefront 1 and 2 were just not handled very well. Jedi Fallen Order, was, it's solid. Squadrons isn't even a AAA game unless you have, VR. But at the end,
it's hell.
at the end of the day, though, man, like, it's a free-to-play game. Not even me, the grumpy guy, can be like, oh, well, I'm just going to nonstop whine, moan, and complain about. It's free to play. So if it's free to play, obviously there's going to be microtransactions because that's what EA does. This one's developed by Zynga, I believe. It is what it is. My question is this going to be Fortnite or is this going to be PUBG? Is this going to be a Star Wars Battle Royale game? That's my guess.
That's what it would seem. The official Nintendo website gives the following description. Says it will connect players in real time to battle in settings inspired by iconic Star Wars locales. Players will join squads of all new and authentic characters, including daring bounty hunters, heroes of the rebellion, and Imperial stormtroopers, in an action game that immerses players in a fast-paced and visually stunning Star Wars galaxy. So it sounds like it could be like a teams type of play. So it may not be a battle royale, but I think it could be something along the lines of what you might get from Call of Duty or League of Legends or something like that. Something that gives you that team-based strategy fighting, but you get to do it with Star Wars characters. That would be the best guess that I've got, but I suppose only time will tell for sure.
I'll finish it up with this. The one thing I've seen online, and I kind of see where people are coming from, is it's conveniently placed in between episode 6 and 7. And there's a lot of people already not happy with that because Disney, outside of Clone Wars, has really not shown the prequels very much love. And I don't know if it's Disney, so obviously they have some understanding of their consumer base, but like the people that watched Clone Wars as children are now like a big time target audience. You know, they're late teens or early 20s, right in that video game threshold. And they're just not hitting it. But again, it's free to play, guys. If it's going to cost you nothing and you play it once in a blue moon, there's really nothing to complain about. Thanks for having me, man.
Everything to gain and nothing to lose. That's pretty much how we can describe any guest appearance that we've got with Sean Giroux on the show. Thanks for being on, bud. Always a pleasure. Continuing with the Nintendo trend, however, there is a couple of games that are either going to be re-releasing or going to be brand new releases. The first one we're going to be taking a look at is a 2011 classic. Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword has been announced for an HD edition on the Nintendo Switch. Their website gives the description as follows: take to the skies, draw your sword, and experience the earliest story of the Legend of Zelda series. Join Link in his high-flying quest to save Zelda, a childhood friend who must confront her destiny. Soar between floating islands and descend to the treacherous surface world in this updated HD version of The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. While admittedly Ocarina of Time is probably my favorite of the Zelda franchise, this is actually pretty exciting to see, because if this one's going to get an HD remaster, you can bet that some of the others are bound to follow as well, depending, of course, on the success of this release. It has been said that it's going to be happening sometime this year. An official date has not yet been announced. But during the course of the announcement, Nintendo also said that there is no sequel to Breath of the Wild just yet, but more news on that can be expected later this year, and you can bet that when that news is announced, you're going to be finding it right here on Fandom News Now. One of the other franchises, of course, super popular to Nintendo is the Mario franchise, and they also announced that Mario Golf Super Rush is going to be coming this June to the Nintendo Switch. And honestly, it looks a lot like what you got with some of the golf games from the old school Nintendo Wii, but just with a couple of adjustments and throwing in some Mario characters. All of the little gameplay snippets that I've seen, all of the pictures that I've seen have all kind of given me the impression of the Wii of the days of old, but with a clever new twist on it. Their description is as follows: hit the green with up to 4 players locally or online, and golf with familiar Mushroom Kingdom characters. Modes range from standard golf to the energetic speed golf, and an RPG-like golf adventure in story mode. Intuitive motion and button controls, a shot gauge that adapts to the curve of the course, and other new features make it easy for both new players and seasoned pros to drive and putt with power. So be sure to take a look for that on June 25th when it releases for the Nintendo Switch. We've got a couple of more articles to talk about, but we do have some Halloween news that we're going to be getting to towards the tail end of the program. And a reminder that if you want to do a Q&A segment on any of the articles that we have been talking about so far this evening, or you just want to ask some generic questions in general about Fandom Empire, about FNN, about myself, be sure to send us a chat. Be sure to send us a super chat so that I make sure to read it. Sometimes I get a little forgetful and I get so wrapped up in what I'm reading that I forget to take a look at the chat. My apologies, but thank you to everyone that's here. Matt, Kieran, Melissa, Jade, Michael, Gary. I think Brad was in here with us earlier. I believe he's still around, but Art is here with us. Thank you all so much for being a part of what we're doing tonight. Continuing with some streaming stuff, and then going off of what we had discussed last week with Velma getting her own series on HBO, it has now been brought to our attention that Wednesday Addams is getting a live action series for Netflix, and the director of this 8 episodes that have been ordered is going to be none other than Tim Burton himself. The series is described as a sleuthing, supernaturally infused mystery charting Wednesday Addams' years as a student at Nevermore Academy. Wednesday's attempts to master her emerging psychic ability, thwart a monstrous killing spree that has terrorized the local town, and solve the supernatural mystery that embroiled her parents 25 years ago, all while navigating her new and very tangled relationships at Nevermore. You know, last week I mentioned that we looked at this Velma series and probably asked ourselves, why? And now we're taking a look at the Wednesday Addams series and recognizing, oh, that's why. You know, we can't ask why to the Wednesday Addams series because we've got our answer in the Velma series. Origin stories, particularly live-action origin stories, seem to be a trend that we're noticing over the last couple of weeks, and I can't help but wonder who else could be getting a live-action adaptation in the not-too-distant future. We've already had Velma and Wednesday Addams, and I want to ask you, chat, who do you think could get their own live-action adaptation on a streaming service? We still have Amazon Prime, we still have Hulu, we've still got Disney Plus, for crying out loud. What type of character could you see getting a live-action adaptation on a streaming service? Speaking of Netflix, we have gotten confirmation that Season 3 of the Umbrella Academy has now begun filming. We got an Instagram post from none other than Elliot Page, and even though not much was revealed, it was just a photo from the set, Elliot's chair now features the Sparrow Academy logo, which, as you know, or those of you who maybe have been watching the show at some point, the Sparrow Academy was what was revealed to be at the very end of Season 2 after a very convoluted twist and turn with the timeline. Ben, who had been deceased up until this point, was now revealed to be the leader of the Sparrow Academy when our favorite intrepid young heroes returned home. Now, this season, particularly Season 2, gave a lot more eyeballs to this series than what we had with Season 1, which has helped increase the paydays for the entire cast of the Umbrella Academy. There were no specifics listed as to just how much quote-unquote heftier their paychecks are, but you can bet that the excitement that was drawn from Elliot Page partially comes from an increased payday. Nielsen reports that U.S. viewers alone have watched over 3 billion minutes of the first 2 seasons of this show, and you can bet that there will be more to come whenever Season 3 eventually does drop. If filming is happening in very early 2021, you could probably expect it to drop sometime this winter or early next year. All right, Halloween fans, this is one that is definitely going to be sparking a lot of conversation. It's going to be something that was talked about on Phantom Empire just moments ago, but we're going to keep talking about it because this is a pretty important piece of the Halloween franchise moving forward. John Carpenter himself made headlines this week when he said that it's very likely that Halloween Kills will go to streaming services. Now, in all likelihood, he probably meant a premium video on demand, but as Sean, Dave, and Jimmy talked about on Phantom Empire Live a couple of weeks ago, it's also certainly possible that a streaming service steps up and purchases Halloween Kills. But the last time we at Phantom Empire checked, we were predicting that the movie would be released to theaters and PVOD at the same time. But the idea that Carpenter himself is recognizing the importance of streaming services definitely speaks volumes to the likelihood of this happening. There are a lot of people in the chat that are saying, hell yes, Matthew Whitfield being one of the main ones. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts as we get into the final minutes of this week's episode of Fandom News Now. What do you make of the idea that this could go to a streaming service? What did you make of the Cruella trailer? And who else do you think could be getting their own series now that Wednesday Addams and Velma have been officially announced? I'm going to be checking out the chat right now, so be sure to send in your chats, be sure to send in your super chats so that we can keep an eye out for all of the questions that you have during this Q&A segment. Let's take a look here. Can we get a Dr. Loomis series? Says Kieran. That could be interesting to see for sure. He also says the Zelda timeline is so nuts. That's putting it mildly, bud, for sure. our friend Michael is saying, I'm always watching, which pretty accurate. That is pretty accurate. We're doing a lot of commentary about, let's see, Godzilla, which Godzilla versus Kong is not too far away. Did anybody notice the picture that was posted in the Phantom Empire Den that was Kong versus Godzilla versus Paddington? Paddington 3 has been announced to be happening, but I think I'll stick with those two primary monsters for the time being. Going to be undergoing changes as well to match Elliot's transition. That's a good point, Jade. I'm really curious to see what they do with Vanya's character, because your comment above says, will Elliot Page be returning for his role in Umbrella Academy? Like, will they still be playing the character, or is the character going to be experiencing similar changes? We explored some of Vanya's potential bisexuality in the previous season, so it doesn't seem entirely unlikely that this series could tackle a conversation such as that. I haven't heard any official confirmations about how they're going to be approaching that. I think Elliot Page is an experienced enough actor that if he needed to play a woman, it's entirely possible, especially considering this quote-unquote heftier paycheck that we've been hearing talks about. So I think that's very much a possibility. Matt sends in a super chat that says, as much as I want to see H kills in theater, I'm okay with streaming. Not sold on Cruella yet. Can we get a Pugsley series where he is a mass murderer? Matt, those are all very good points. Those are all very, very good points. I saw the first Halloween movie in the theaters back in 2018, and never did I imagine that a global pandemic would be the thing that slows down production. And B, never did I imagine that it would even be a discussion that we'd be seeing the sequel on a video on demand, which just goes to show how much can happen over the course of just a couple of years. I'm curious why you're not entirely sold on Cruella yet. I think Cruella as a character is interesting, but even going back to the 1990s movies, like, I really did enjoy the Glenn Close 101 Dalmatians. Like, she just gradually got crazier and crazier as that movie went on. We saw Hugh Laurie as Jasper in that movie. For those of you who want to see House before he became House, that's definitely worth taking a look at. But it's very interesting to see that Cruella as a character is getting this much attention. I was not entirely sold on the idea until I saw the trailer. And even though I'm probably not going to end up seeing it in theaters, I do intend to see it on Disney Plus whenever they put it up there for sure. Jay's comments on the Pugsley topic, though, is that Pugsley would just end up like Uncle Fester. Nothing can change my mind. Horace and Jasper made those movies for me, says Kieran. But I just don't know if there are any theaters near me that have IMAX. Oh, boy. I've got a couple of thoughts on IMAX, but I should probably save those for another time. Last call for super chats and regular chats as we get ready to wind down for the evening. Brad says, I'm just very eager to see Halloween Kills. Either way, however it is released. Health safety is definitely important. Not sure how things will become October with the virus situation. Kieran says, if Christopher Lloyd is in anything, I'll watch it. Zombies Like Cheese says, the movie I'm most excited about is Godzilla versus Kong. Out of everything that I have seen in recent weeks, I would probably be inclined to agree with you. Out of all of the ones that I've seen, that is one that I would probably want to see on the big screen. So I'm probably going to have to hit up my buddy Armando to see if he's willing to go and check that movie out with me. As far as Cruella goes, probably going to see it in streaming. If I can get somebody to go to see Halloween Kills with me, then I'll probably go see it in theaters. But, I mean, nothing would compare to seeing the movie with people like Sean and Jade and people here at Fandom Empire who are very invested in the Halloween franchise. I'm probably not as invested as I could be or should be, but I'm still very excited to see what's to come. Before we close for the evening, I also want to extend all of my love and support to the people here in Texas. I am from the Dallas area, and we are experiencing a blizzard unlike any other. And I know that there's probably not a whole lot of sympathy coming from people in Canada who get blizzards every year. But when you take into the account that this type of weather only comes every 10 to 15 years in Texas, we're just not as prepared for it as you guys. We don't have insulated pipes. We don't really have very good insulation in our houses. And we really don't know how to drive in these slick conditions. I work for an ATM company at my 9 to 5, and I was driving around the Dallas-Fort Worth area today working on different machines and saw at least a dozen cars that had slid off of the side of the highway and had to get pulled out by a tow truck. So people are losing power. People are losing water. They're having trouble finding food sometimes, depending on if the markets have what we're looking for. There's definitely a run on water bottles and bread and meat, lots of staples that are going quickly because of the panic that this weather is causing. So to those of you that are low on power or have been part of rolling blackouts, my love to you. If you're out of water, hang in there. It'll be coming back soon. And if you are interested in learning more, just be sure to go take a look at the ERCOT page, ERCOT. That is the main page for the power distributor in Texas that's trying to get our grid back online. These people are working around the clock to try and restore power and return Texas to the status quo. And we would not be in the situation that we are in without them. Well, I think that's about all that we've got for tonight. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. Remember to follow Fandom Empire on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and so many other platforms. We've got shows on this page about Star Wars, Rick and Morty. The primary Fandom Empire show is on every week, as is Fandom News Now. And we've got a Supernatural and Game of Thrones show in the works. So be sure to stay tuned for all of that, and stay tuned for more awesome Fandom Empire stuff right here on the YouTube page. But for now, I'm Zach Arnold, and that's Fandom News to me.